The city streets were busy that Tuesday afternoon. Cars honked. People rushed past each other. Nobody paid attention to the tall man in the expensive gray suit walking alone on the sidewalk. His name was Richard Hale, and he was very, very rich. But money couldn't buy what Richard needed most. It couldn't erase the terrible mistake he made 5 years ago. It couldn't bring back his son. Every day at exactly 4 o'clock, Richard left his huge mansion and walked through the city. He never smiled. He never talked to anyone. His face looked like it was made of stone. Cold, hard, empty. People who saw him whispered to each other, "That's Richard Hale," they said. "He owns half the buildings in this city." But something happened to him, something that broke his heart. Richard heard the whispers, but he didn't care. He just kept walking, step after step, trying to escape the painful memories that followed him everywhere like dark shadows. Today felt like every other day. The same streets, the same sounds, the same loneliness. But then Richard heard something different. Crying, not the usual city noise. This was the sound of a child's voice, desperate and scared. The crying was getting closer, following him down the street. Richard walked faster. He didn't want to deal with anyone's problems. He had enough of his own. "Wait! Please wait." The small voice cut through the afternoon air like a knife. Richard's shoulders stiffened. He kept his eyes straight ahead and walked even faster. Whatever this was, it wasn't his business. "Please, mister, don't go." Tiny footsteps pounded on the sidewalk behind him, getting closer, closer. Then Richard felt something grab his jacket. He stopped and looked down. A little boy stood there, holding on to Richard's expensive jacket with both small hands. The boy was tiny, maybe 4 or 5 years old. His brown skin was shiny with sweat. Tears streamed down his round cheeks. He wore a gray T-shirt that was too big for him and blue jeans with holes in the knees. The boy looked up at Richard with huge, frightened eyes. "Let go," Richard said in a cold voice. "I don't know you." "Please," the boy sobbed. "Please don't leave me again." Those words hit Richard like a punch to the stomach. Again? What did this child mean? "I said let go." Richard tried to pull away, but the boy held on tighter. "And he said to find you," the boy cried. "She said you're the man from the photo." Richard froze. His heart started beating faster. What photo? Who was this child? People on the street were starting to stare now. A rich white man in an expensive suit. A crying black child grabbing onto him. Richard could feel their eyes judging him. "What do you want?" Richard demanded. His voice was harsh, but inside, something was stirring. Something he hadn't felt in 5 long years. Fear. The boy wiped his nose with the back of his hand. I need you. Auntie said you would help. She showed me your picture and said to find you if anything bad happened." "I don't help anyone," Richard said. But even as the words left his mouth, he couldn't make himself walk away. Something about this boy, something familiar. "What's your name?" Richard heard himself ask. "Jaden," the boy whispered. "But everyone calls me JJ. "And why are you following me, Jaden?" The boy's bottom lip trembled. Fresh tears filled his eyes. Because my mommy died when I was born, and my daddy went away when I was just a baby, and Annie takes care of me. But she said, Said what? Richard's voice was quieter now, gentler almost. Jaden looked around nervously, then stood on his tiptoes. He motioned for Richard to bend down. When Richard didn't move, Jaden tugged on his jacket again. "Please, it's a secret." Against every instinct telling him to walk away, Richard bent down until his ear was close to the boy's mouth. Jaden's whisper was so soft, Richard almost didn't hear it. "Daddy was your boy." The world stopped spinning. Richard's knees went weak. The sounds of the city faded away until all he could hear was the pounding of his own heart. Your boy, your boy, your boy. It couldn't be true. His son had disappeared 5 years ago after their terrible fight. They had screamed at each other, said horrible things. His son had stormed out, saying he never wanted to see Richard again. And Richard, stubborn and proud, had let him go. He never knew his son had met someone. Never knew there was a baby. Never knew. You're lying, Richard said, but his voice shook. This is some kind of trick. You want money. Jaden shook his head hard. No. Andy said you and Daddy fought. She said Daddy loved you but was scared. She said you didn't know about me. Nobody told you. Richard grabbed the boy's small shoulders. What was your father's name? Tell me right now. The boy's eyes got even wider. He was terrified, but he answered, and when he said the name, Richard's whole body started shaking, because it was his son's name. The name Richard hadn't spoken out loud in 5 years, because it hurt too much. How? Richard's voice cracked. How do you know that name? Because Annie has pictures. Pictures of him holding me when I was a tiny baby. She said, he sang to me every night. She said he loved me so much. Jaden's tears came faster now. But then he went away forever. And Mommy was already gone. And now I only have Andy. Richard felt something break inside his chest. Something that had been frozen solid for 5 years suddenly cracked open. This boy, this scared, crying little boy with the big brown eyes. His grandson, his son's child, the last piece of his son that still existed in the world. Richard's legs gave out. He fell to his knees right there on the busy sidewalk. He didn't care who was watching anymore. He didn't care about anything except the truth staring him in the face. He had a grandson, and he had missed 4 years of the boy's life because of pride and anger and stubbornness. I'm sorry, Richard whispered. His voice was rough and broken. I'm so sorry. And for the first time in 5 years, tears ran down Richard Hale's face. Jaden looked confused and scared. But then, slowly, carefully, the little boy stepped forward and wrapped his small arms around Richard's neck. It's okay, Jaden said softly. Auntie said you would cry. She said, that's how we know you're real. Richard held on to his grandson and cried like he had never cried before. All the pain, all the guilt, all the lost years came pouring out. People on the street stopped and stared. Some pulled out their phones to take pictures. But Richard didn't notice any of it. All he could feel were his grandson's small arms around him. All he could think was, I found you. I finally found you. But even in that moment of joy and pain mixed together, questions filled Richard's mind. Where was Jaden's aunt? Why had she sent the boy to find him alone? Why now after all these years? And most importantly, what other secrets was he about to discover? Richard slowly pulled back on the hug and looked at Jaden's tear-stained face. His hands were still shaking. His heart was beating so fast it hurt. Where's your aunt? Richard asked, trying to sound calm. Where is she right now? Jaden bit his lip and looked down at his shoes. She was at the park. We were feeding the birds. But then she saw your picture on her phone. She said, that's him. He's walking on Maple Street right now. And she sent you to find me? Alone. Richard felt anger rising in his chest. What kind of person would send a 4-year-old boy chasing after a stranger through busy city streets? No. Jaden said quickly. She said to wait. She was packing up our stuff. But I got scared. I thought you would disappear again like Daddy did. So I ran. You ran away? Jaden nodded, fresh tears filling his eyes. I'm sorry, but Annie talks about you sometimes when she thinks I'm sleeping. She says you're the only family I have left. She says if something happens to her, I need to find you. So when I saw you walking, I just ran. Richard's anger melted away. This brave little boy had run through the city, scared and alone, just to find him, just to find family. How far did you run? Richard asked gently. I don't know. Really far. My legs hurt. Jaden looked back down the street, suddenly worried. Annie is going to be so scared. She's probably looking everywhere for me. Richard stood up and took Jaden's small hand in his. The boy's hand was so tiny, so warm. Richard couldn't believe this was real. Couldn't believe he was holding his grandson's hand. We need to find her, Richard said. Can you remember which park? The one with the big fountain, where the stone lion shoots water from his mouth. Morrison Park. That's 15 blocks from here. Richard pulled out his phone. I'm calling my driver. We'll find your aunt, and then... He paused. And then you're going to tell me everything. I need to understand what happened. I need to know about your father. Jaden squeezed Richard's hand tighter. Okay, but can we get ice cream after? Annie never has money for ice cream. Something twisted in Richard's heart. His grandson never got ice cream because there wasn't enough money, while Richard lived in a mansion with more rooms than he could count. You can have all the ice cream you want, Richard promised. Every single day if you want it. Jaden's face lit up with the biggest smile Richard had ever seen. It reminded him so much of his son when he was little, before everything went wrong between them. 20 minutes later, Richard's black car pulled up to Morrison Park. Jaden practically jumped out before it stopped moving, calling Annie, Annie. A woman's scream pierced the air. JJ. Oh my God, JJ. A young black woman came running across the park. She was maybe 30 years old, wearing jeans and a faded blue sweater. Her face was wet with tears. Her eyes were red and swollen. She dropped to her knees and grabbed Jaden, holding him so tight the boy squeaked. Don't you ever do that again. Do you hear me? Don't you ever run away like that. I thought. She couldn't finish. She just kept crying and holding Jaden. Richard stood a few feet away, watching. He felt like an outsider, like he didn't belong in this moment. But then the woman looked up and saw him. Her whole body went still. She stared at Richard like she was seeing a ghost. Mr. Hale, she whispered. It's really you. I'm told this boy is my grandson, Richard said. His voice sounded cold again, but it was just his way of protecting himself. I need you to explain how that's possible. I need you to tell me everything. The woman stood up slowly, keeping one hand on Jaden's shoulder. She looked scared but also determined. My name is Maya Cooper. I am Sarah's sister. Sarah was your son's girlfriend. She died giving birth to JJ 5 years ago. Richard felt like he'd been slapped. My son had a girlfriend named Sarah? I never met any Sarah. I know. He was too scared to tell you about her. Maya's voice shook. He loved her so much, Mr. Hale. But he said you were difficult. He said you had opinions about who he should date, about the kind of person who was good enough for your family. Richard wanted to argue, but he couldn't, because it was true. He had been controlling. He had ideas about who his son should marry. Someone from a wealthy family. Someone who could help build the family business. Someone white. He had never said it out loud, but his son knew. Children always know what their parents really think, even when nobody speaks the words. So he kept her a secret, Richard said quietly. Yes, and when Sarah got pregnant, he was terrified to tell you. He wanted to. He practiced what he would say 100 times. But then, Maya's voice broke. Then you two had that big fight about something else. About him wanting independence. About the business. He came to our apartment that night, so angry, so hurt. He said you told him he was weak, that he would never be good enough. Richard closed his eyes. He remembered that night. Every terrible word they had shouted at each other. It was the last time he ever saw his son alive. What happened to him? Richard asked. After he left? Maya wiped her eyes. He tried to make it work. He got a job. A small apartment for him and Sarah. He was so excited about the baby. He bought little clothes and painted the nursery. He was going to be a great father. But Sarah had complications during the pregnancy. The doctor said she needed bed rest. Special medicine. It was expensive. Your son worked 3 jobs trying to pay for everything. He was exhausted all the time. Maya's voice got even softer. The night Sarah went into labor, he was driving her to the hospital. He was so tired, Mr. Hale. So tired he could barely see straight. He ran a red light and... She covered her mouth with her hand. A truck hit them. Sarah died during the emergency surgery. The baby survived. Your son was in the hospital for 2 weeks with broken bones, but he lived. Richard's legs felt weak again. Where is he now? Where's my son? Maya's face crumpled. He couldn't handle it. The guilt, the grief. Losing Sarah destroyed him. He looked at JJ and saw the baby his mistakes had made motherless. He tried for 3 months. I helped him. But then one morning I came to check on them, and he was just gone. He left a note saying he couldn't do it, that JJ deserved better than a father who killed his mother. No, Richard whispered. No, no, no. I try to find him, Maya continued. For 2 years I searched. I call hospitals, shelters, police stations. Nothing. It's like he vanished. So I took JJ and raised him myself. It's been hard. Money is tight, but I love him like he's my own. Richard looked at Jaden, who was listening to everything with big, sad eyes. The boy understood more than people probably thought he did. Why didn't you come to me sooner? Richard demanded. Why did you let 3 years pass? Maya lifted her chin. Because your son told me what kind of man you were. He said you cared more about money and reputation than people. He said you would probably reject JJ because... She glanced at the boy and lowered her voice. Because his mother was black and poor. Because he didn't fit your perfect family image. The words hit Richard like bullets. Each one true. Each one deserved. But something changed, Maya continued. I got sick last month. Really sick. The doctors aren't sure what's wrong yet. And I realized that if something happens to me, JJ has nobody. He would go into foster care. He would lose everyone. She reached into her bag with shaking hands and pulled out an envelope. It was old and wrinkled, like it had been carried around for years. Your son left these. Letters he wrote to Sarah while she was pregnant. Letters about you, about his fears, about his hopes. Maya held out the envelope. The last letter, he made Sarah promise that if anything happened to him, she would bring the baby to you. He said that despite everything, you would protect your grandson. He believed that. Richard took the envelope with trembling hands, his son's handwriting on the front, his son's words inside. He opened it carefully and pulled out the first letter. Dear Sarah, I'm terrified to tell my father about you, about us, about the baby. He's going to be so angry. But I want you to know something important. No matter what he says, no matter how he reacts, I choose you. I choose our family. I choose love over money. I choose happiness over his approval. I just wish I was brave enough to tell him that to his face. Richard's vision blurred. He moved to the second letter. Sarah, the nursery is almost done. Yellow walls like sunshine. I can already picture our babies sleeping there. Picture myself rocking them at night, singing the same songs my father used to sing to me when I was little. He doesn't know it, but those moments are my favorite memories. Before the business consumed him, before he forgot how to smile. I want to give our child those same memories. I want to be different. The third letter made Richard's hand shake so hard he almost dropped it. My dear Sarah, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. Please don't blame yourself. Life is unpredictable and cruel sometimes. I need you to do something important. Take our baby to my father. I know what I've said about him. I know he's difficult and cold. But underneath all that ice, there's still the man who sang to me at night, the man who taught me to ride a bike, the man who cried when my mother died. He will protect our child. I know he will. Because even though we fight, even though we hurt each other, he's still my father. And our baby is his blood. Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him I loved him. Tell him I wish we had more time. Tell him to be better with our child than he was with me. Richard couldn't read anymore. The letters fell from his hands and scattered on the ground. He fell to his knees for the second time that day, sobbing so hard his whole body shook. Jaden came and knelt beside him, putting a small hand on Richard's shoulder. It's okay, Grandpa, the little boy said softly. Andy says crying means you're washing away the sad. When you're done crying, there's room for the happy again. Richard pulled his grandson into his arms and held him tight. So tight. I'm sorry, he whispered into the boy's hair. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. Sorry I drove your father away. Sorry I missed so much. But you're here now, Jaden said simply. That's what Annie says matters. Not the before, the right now. And in that moment, holding his grandson in a park full of strangers, Richard Hale made a promise. He would never let go again. Richard sat on the park bench with Jaden on one side and Maya on the other. The letters lay spread across his lap. His eyes were still red from crying, but he felt different somehow, lighter, like a heavy weight had been lifted from his shoulders. "There are more letters," Maya said quietly. She pulled another envelope from her bag. "These ones, your son wrote them after Sarah died, before he left. He never gave them to anyone. I found them in his apartment." Richard's hand shook as he reached for the envelope. "Should I read them?" "I think you need to," Maya said. "They explain things. About how he felt. About why he couldn't stay." Richard opened the envelope carefully. Inside were 3 more letters, written in his son's handwriting. But these letters looked different. The handwriting was messy, like his son had been shaking when he wrote them. The first one had no greeting, just words pouring out. "I killed her. I killed Sarah, the woman I loved more than anything in the world. I was so tired, so exhausted from working 3 jobs. And I ran that red light. My mistake. My fault. The truck hit her side of the car. If I had just been more careful, more awake, more... The baby survived. My son, JJ, he's beautiful. He has Sarah's eyes and her smile. But when I look at him, all I see is what I took from him. I took his mother before he even got to know her. How can I be his father when I'm the reason he doesn't have a mother?" Richard's throat felt tight. He moved to the second letter. "I tried to call my father today. I picked up the phone 3 times. But I couldn't do it. What would I say? 'Hi, Dad. Remember when you said I'd never amount to anything? You were right. I destroyed the only good thing in my life. I have a son I can't even look at without feeling crushing guilt. And I need help because I'm drowning.' He would probably say I deserve this. That this is what happens when you don't listen. When you choose poorly. When you're weak." Maybe he'd be right. Richard closed his eyes. His son had been suffering so much, and Richard had been right here in the same city. If only he had known. If only he had tried harder to find him after their fight. The third letter was the shortest, but it hurt the most. "Maya is a good person. She'll take care of JJ better than I ever could. She has patience and kindness. Things I don't have anymore. My son deserves someone who can look at him and see joy, not guilt. Maybe someday when he's older, Maya can explain that his father loved him. That leaving was the hardest thing I've ever done. That I think about him every single day. And maybe, if she thinks it's right, she can take him to my father. Because despite everything, my dad knows how to survive. How to be strong. Things I clearly don't know. I'm sorry, JJ. I'm sorry I'm not brave enough to stay. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry I wasn't the son you wanted. I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm sorry for everything." The letter ended there. No signature. No goodbye. Richard folded the letters carefully and put them back in the envelope. His hands were steady now. His mind was clear. "My son was wrong," Richard said firmly. He looked at Maya. He wasn't weak. He was in pain. "There's a difference." Maya nodded, wiping her own tears. Richard turned to Jaden. "And you need to know something very important. Your father loved you. He didn't leave because of you. He left because he was hurting so much he couldn't think straight. Do you understand?" Jaden nodded slowly. "Like when I fall and scrape my knee really bad, and it hurts so much I can't think about anything else." "Exactly like that," Richard said. "Except your father's hurt was on the inside, in his heart. And sometimes that kind of hurt is even worse than scraped knees." "Will he come back?" Jaden asked hopefully. Richard's heart broke all over again. "I don't know, buddy. I honestly don't know. But I'm going to look for him. I'm going to hire people to search every city, every town. And if he's out there, I'll find him." "And then what?" Maya asked carefully. "And then I'll tell him what I should have told him 5 years ago. That I love him. That I'm sorry. That he doesn't have to be perfect. He just has to be himself." Richard stood up and looked at both Maya and Jaden. "But right now, we need to talk about the future. About JJ. About making sure he has everything he needs." Maya straightened her shoulders. "Mr. Hale, I appreciate your concern. But JJ is my responsibility. I've been taking care of him for 3 years. We're family." "I know you are," Richard said gently. "And I'm not trying to take him away from you, but you said you've been sick. You said money is tight. Let me help. I don't want charity, Maya said proudly. It's not charity. It's family taking care of family. Richard pulled out his wallet and handed Maya a business card. This is my lawyer's number. Tomorrow morning, I want you to call him. We're going to set up a trust fund for JJ. Money for his education, for his future, for whatever he needs. Maya's eyes got wide. Mr. Hale, I can't accept. Yes, you can. You must. Richard's voice was firm but kind. My son trusted you with his most precious gift. The least I can do is make sure you have the resources to give JJ the best life possible. And Richard continued, I want to be part of that life. I want to see my grandson. Take him to the park. Buy him that ice cream I promised. Watch him grow up. I missed the first 4 years. I don't want to miss any more. Jaden jumped up excitedly. Does that mean you're my grandpa now? Like, for real and always? Richard bent down until he was eye level with his grandson. For real and always. I promise. Jaden threw his arms around Richard's neck. I always wanted grandpa. Tommy at my daycare has a grandpa who takes him fishing. Can you take me fishing? Richard laughed. Actually laughed. It felt strange, like using muscles he'd forgotten he had. I've never been fishing in my life, but I'll learn. We'll learn together. And can we get a dog? I always wanted a dog. JJ, Maya said in a warning voice. Don't push it. But Richard was smiling. We'll see about the dog. First, let's start with the ice cream I promised. They walked together to the ice cream shop on the corner of the park. Jaden held Richard's hand on one side and Maya's hand on the other, swinging between them happily. Inside the shop, Jaden's eyes got huge looking at all the flavors. I can have any one I want. Any one, Richard confirmed. Or 2. Or 3. 3. Jaden looked like he might faint from happiness. While Jaden debated between chocolate and strawberry and vanilla, Maya pulled Richard aside. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. Really? Is it guilt? Obligation? What? Richard watched his grandson pointing excitedly at different flavors. His whole face lit up with joy. 5 years ago, I had a son who loved me, Richard said softly. And I was so focused on business, on money, on my idea what his life should be, that I pushed him away. I chose pride over love, control over connection. He turned to look at Maya. That choice cost me everything. My son is gone. 5 years of my grandson's life are gone. I can't get those years back, but I can choose differently now. And what are you choosing? Maya asked. Family, Richard said simply. Love. Being the grandfather my grandson deserves. Being the father figure my son needed. I'm choosing to be better. Maya studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, but if you hurt that boy, if you disappoint him like you disappointed your son, I will make sure you regret it. I don't care how rich you are. Fair enough, Richard said. He respected her fierce protection of Jaden. You have my word. I won't let him down. Jaden came running over with his decision. I want chocolate, with rainbow sprinkles, and a cherry on top. 1 chocolate with rainbow sprinkles and a cherry. Coming up, Richard said, as they sat eating their ice cream at a small table. Richard made a mental list of everything he needed to do. Call his lawyer about the trust fund. Hire investigators to search for his son. Clear out one of the rooms in his mansion to be Jaden's room for when he visited. Buy toys, children's books, everything a 4-year-old boy could want. But more than that, he needed to learn how to be present, how to listen, how to love without trying to control. Grandpa, Jaden said, chocolate ice cream all over his face. Yes, buddy? Are you happy now? Is the sad wash away? Richard looked at this beautiful, brave little boy who had chased him through city streets just to find family. He thought about his son's letters, about all the pain and missed opportunities. But he also thought about the future, about fishing trips and ice cream dates, about bedtime stories and birthday parties, about getting a second chance to be the person he should have been all along. Yes, Richard said, and he meant it. The sad isn't completely gone. It might never be completely gone, but there's definitely room for happy now. Thanks to you. Jaden grinned, showing chocolate-covered teeth. Good, because Annie says families are supposed to make each other happy. Your auntie is very smart, Richard agreed. As they finished their ice cream, people in the shop occasionally glanced their way. An elderly white millionaire, a young black woman, and a small mixed-race boy, all laughing together like they'd known each other forever. Some people probably had questions. Some might have judged. But Richard didn't care anymore what people thought. All that mattered was the family sitting at this table. All that mattered was this moment, right now. All that mattered was that he had found his grandson, and he would spend the rest of his life making up for lost time. Outside the ice cream shop, the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink and purple. It was the end of one day, and the promise of many more to come. Richard Hale had spent 5 years walking alone, carrying guilt and grief like heavy stones. But today, for the first time in so long, he wasn't alone anymore. He had family. He had hope. He had love. And that was worth more than all the money in the world. Did this story touch your heart? If you felt the emotions, the hope, and the power of second chances, please like this story. Share it with someone who needs to hear about the importance of family and forgiveness. And subscribe to read more amazing stories that will make you laugh, cry, and believe in love again. Every share helps spread the message that it's never too late to choose family, to choose love, and to be better than we were yesterday. What would you do if you discovered you had a grandchild you never knew existed? Tell us in the comments.